All right, guys, today we are going to talk a little bit about backward design. And so this is just an overview slide to show you what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to talk about understanding the process of backward design, going into a detailed look. We're going to look at goals and objectives, assessments, lesson plans, and a summary. So beginning, what is backwards design? Backward design is the process of planning your unit by beginning with the end goal in mind. So we have 3 different steps for planning backward design. Step 1 is to determine the goals and objectives that need to be accomplished by the end of the unit. Step 2 is to create an assessment that properly evaluates the objectives and goals. And step 3 is going to be where we design the lessons and activities that can support the learning for the objectives and goals set for the unit. This next page is a brief little diagram to help you remember the 3 steps of backward design. In step 1, we're identifying the desired results, which means what do you expect students to know or be able to do at the end of the class, unit, or course. Step 2, determine acceptable evidence. So how will the students demonstrate that they met the learning outcome? And step 3 is plan learning experiences and activities. How will students gain the knowledge and develop the skills necessary to meet the learning outcome? In order to effectively use backwards design, we must first understand that each component builds upon each other. In order to move on to step 2, you must complete step 1 first. The goal of backward design is to effectively assess what our end goal is. This goal is ideally the goal for the end of the unit or for the 6 weeks. By identifying the end goals or objectives, you can then figure out how to assess the learning over the objectives. This process includes creating an assessment or a rubric to measure the objectives and student achievement of the objectives. After the creation of the assessment, you can then begin to plan instruction and activities that contribute to student success on the assessments. Once you have your lesson plan and activities planned, you are all set and ready to begin teaching your unit. By using backward design, we are able to give students exposure to the rigor and depth of the knowledge that they are expected to meet according to the state objectives and standards, or in our case, the TEKS. You as a teacher are also better prepared for your lesson and have a better understanding of the TEKS that your students are being asked to master. Goals and objectives. To begin with, we're going to start looking at our unit goals or the objectives for that unit. So you're going to begin by looking at your TEKS or the goals that you are wanting to plan. You're going to break down your TEKS to completely understand what they are asking the student to accomplish. You're going to create a list of the TEKS that can be assessed, and then you will create daily objectives that are productive to the end of the unit assessment. So steps for goals and objectives. You're going to start by pulling up your YAG or your year at a glance located on the TEKS resource page. You're going to look specifically at the unit you are planning for next. Then you will look at the individual TEKS to see what the TEK is asking the student to do. Begin to break your TEKS down into the cognitive expectation, so that will be the verb of the TEK, and the content expectation, that is what the student must demonstrate. Using the YAG, decide which TEKS are readiness standards, supporting standards, and process standards. And after breaking down the TEKS, you're going to begin writing daily objectives that are productive in helping students achieve the end goal or objective. For example, this is a 6th grade ELAR YAG. We are going to look specifically at the 5th 6 weeks, which is analyzing text across the genres. And I'm going to go look at the individual TEKS to break down. So looking at the 2 readiness standards here, we have 6.6C, which is use text evidence to support an appropriate response. And we have 6.6D, which is paraphrase and summarize text in ways that maintain meaning and logical order. To break down our TEK, we're going to look at the verbs of our TEK, and we're going to look at the expectation of the TEKs, or what the student should demonstrate. So in 6.6C, our verbs are support and respond, and the expectation is to use text evidence to support a response. In 6.6D, our verbs are paraphrase and summarize, and we are going to summarize or paraphrase a text. So from these two TEKs that we broke down, our two daily objectives that we came up with, our students will be able to use text evidence to support a response to a question or text, and students will be able to summarize or paraphrase a text. Once we have our TEKs broken down and we have our daily objectives stated, then we will create an assessment. To create an assessment, we will use our testing platform. In this instance, we are using DMAC for our testing platform. We will search for our readiness and supporting TEKs to create an assessment that is made up of 70% readiness standards and 30% supporting and process standards. After creating our exam, we would like to stay between 18 and 25 questions. You are going to take the exam so that you can see how to break the questions down, analyze the text, and potentially point out misconceptions that the students may have. By taking the exam, you guys are exposing yourselves to the rigor that the students will be faced with, and you are going to be able to deviate lessons that help support the skills that your students need for the assessment. So on the next slide, we're going to be looking at the DMAC test creator. In this case, we're looking specifically at TEKs from Unit 5. We're looking at the TEKs that are 2B, 9A, and 9C for 6th grade ELAR in Unit 5. Then once you have your test created and you've taken it and you've figured out what specifically you need to be teaching for your students to be prepared for the exam, you will move on to plan your lessons. In planning your lessons, you will begin to assess the skills that your students will need in order to reach mastery of the content of the unit. You're going to find activities that will enhance the knowledge of your students throughout the unit. Using your lesson plan template, choose a few TEKs that correlate together for each day, and you will use your daily objectives to plan your activities per day. For example, we are looking at a lesson plan for Monday, March 1st, which is in the 5th 6 weeks for 6th grade ELAR. Students will work on bell work that includes spelling rules, changing endings to IES, ING, and ED, which would be skills that are going to appear on the revise and edit portion of their exam. For the lesson, the class will read the passage The Gymnast by Gary Soto. As they read, they will analyze the text, making annotations along the way. When they are done reading, they will discuss the story and elements of the story. And then students will fill out a somebody wanted but so then summary for the passage. For the daily objective, the students will read and annotate a passage. Then students will summarize the passage. So that was going back to the TEK that we broke down originally. Some questions of the day are: what genre characteristics apply to the text that you are reading? And how can I monitor my understanding and comprehension while reading and listening? So these would be skills that the teacher would help students learn in order to properly analyze a text and think about the text as they are reading in order to maintain mastery on an exam. In summary, using backwards design is a simple yet effective way to ensure that our students are learning the most important concepts in each unit. It also ensures that we, as teachers, know our standards in depth and have a good enough understanding that we are teaching them to the best of our abilities with activities that can be engaging for our students. Over here, we have some resources for our teachers. These resources include Lead Forward Playlist, which includes activities that are hands-on or involve movement and discourse for your students. We have the Lead Forward resources that include the snapshot that will tell you whether your TEKs are readiness or supporting or process. We have the link to the TEKs resource system. This is where you will gather your YAG. You can look in detail at your TEKs. And then we have the Implementing TEKs resource pacing guides, and these are going to be very helpful in breaking down your TEKs and making sure that you are following all of the TEKs necessary in order to get cover all your TEKS for the assessment.